Your home is supposed to be private. The place where no one watches. The place where you draw the curtains. And the world outside ceases to exist. But what happens when the world outside does not stop watching? What happens when someone across the street has made a study of your windows, your schedule, your life, and you had no idea? Until something so small, so easy to dismiss, so ordinary, made you look up, and look across, and understand that the dark window you had never thought twice about was not as dark as you believed. The three people in tonight's stories all had a neighbor. They just did not know what kind. Story number 1. The camera. I have always been a light sleeper. This is a fact about myself I have known since childhood, and mostly accepted. I wake at sounds. I wake at changes in light. I wake, sometimes, at nothing at all. Simply at the sense that something in the world has shifted. This is the quality that saved me. I was 29 and living in a narrow terraced house in a residential street in the north of England. My bedroom was at the front of the house. The curtains were thick blackout curtains, because of the light sleeping. But the window itself faced directly onto the street. And the house directly opposite. Number 31. A mid-terrace identical to mine. Owned by a man I knew only as the man at number 31. I had never spoken to him. He was older. Late 60s, I thought. He put his bins out on Tuesday nights. He kept his curtains closed. I did not think about him. Why would I? He was background. The first night I woke and saw the light, I assumed it was a phone screen. That pale blue-white glow that a phone produces in a dark room. Through my blackout curtains it was a thin sliver only. A hairline of brightness along the left edge of the curtain. I rolled over and went back to sleep. The second time, a week later, I was more awake when I noticed it. The same thin sliver of pale light. I looked at it for a moment. It was perfectly still. Phone screens move. People adjust them. This light did not move at all. I got up. I moved to the window and put my eye to the gap. The light was coming from number 31. From the front bedroom window of number 31, which had always had its curtains closed. The curtains were open. And in the window, positioned at the center of the frame, was a camera on a tripod. A long lens camera. Pointed directly at my window. The pale light was the standby indicator on the camera body. A small LED. Blue-white. Perfectly still. I stood at my curtain gap and looked at it for a long time. Then I stepped back and sat on the edge of my bed. I thought about my blackout curtains. They did not quite reach the wall on the left side. A gap. An inch. Maybe less. I thought about the angle of a long lens camera, positioned at the center of a first-floor window directly opposite. I thought about what that angle would allow it to see. Through a gap of 1 inch. I did not sleep again that night. In the morning I called the police. When they entered number 31 they found the camera. On the tripod. Angled at my window. On the memory cards they found footage. Months of footage. The gap in my curtains was 1¼ inches. The camera was a 400mm telephoto lens. What it could see through that gap I will not describe. He was charged. He was convicted. I moved out before the trial concluded. I have blackout curtains in my new home. They reach the wall on every side. I measured them with a ruler. I still check them every night. The measurement does not change. I check anyway. Story number 2. The Notebook. I want to start with the thing that seems smallest. Because it is the thing that has stayed with me the most. It was a coffee mug. Not mine. I did not own a mug with a red stripe around the rim. I am certain of this the way I am certain of very few things. I found the mug with the red stripe in my kitchen cupboard. On a Tuesday morning in September. Third shelf. Behind my own mugs. As if it had always been there. I have lived alone for 4 years. I do not have guests who leave things behind. I have not had anyone in my kitchen who would have left a mug. I set it on the counter and went to work. When I came home, I put it in the bin. I did not call the police. I convinced myself there was an explanation I was not thinking of. There is always an explanation you are not thinking of. 3 weeks later, my neighbor from across the road knocked on my door. A woman called Sandra. 70s. Lives alone. She had never knocked on my door before. She said she was sorry to bother me. She said she had been trying to decide whether to say something for a while. She said she would rather say it and be wrong than not say it and be right. She told me that the man in the house to my left, number 14, had been letting himself into my property. She had seen him 3 times over the past 2 months. Each time in the middle of the day when she knew I was at work. The 3rd time she wrote down the date and the time and came to tell me. I listened to Sandra and I thought about the mug. I thought about the Tuesday 4 weeks ago when I came home. And felt certain that my kitchen smelled of cigarette smoke. I do not smoke. I had attributed it to a neighbor through the ventilation. The morning my back gate was open when I was certain I had shut it. The spare key I could not find for 3 days. And then found back on the wrong hook. Not missing. Just moved. I called the police from my doorstep while Sandra waited. Number 14 was a man in his mid-40s. Lived alone. When the police searched his property, they found a key to my house. Not a copy. My key. The original spare. He had taken it. Had a copy made. Had returned the original. They also found, in a drawer in his bedroom, a notebook. A small, ordinary notebook. In it was a record. Dates and times. Entries like: leaves for work 8:10. Returns 6:40. Lights off by 11. 47 entries. Going back 8 months. My routine. In his handwriting. In his drawer. He knew me better than most people who know me. He was charged. He was convicted. Sandra comes for tea sometimes now. She sat with me on the worst nights of the investigation. I think about the mug. I think about why he left it. Was it careless? Was it intentional? Was he telling me something? I have never found an answer. I have one key now. It does not leave my possession. Ever. Story number 3. The pattern warning, most psychologically precise story in the series. What I am about to tell you is true. I know how it will sound. I knew how it would sound before it was over. And I told it anyway to the detective assigned to my case, who wrote it down without expression, and who called me 3 weeks later to tell me that everything I had told him had been confirmed. I want you to hold that word. Confirmed. While I tell you the rest. I moved into my house 14 months ago. A detached property on a quiet close. 8 houses. A cul-de-sac. My nearest neighbors directly across the close were a couple I will call the Hargroves. Mid-50s. Retired. Friendly enough. We exchanged greetings when we collected our post. Nothing more. About 4 months after I moved in, I began to notice that the Hargroves' upstairs window, the left one, what I assumed was a bedroom, was lit at unusual hours. 2 in the morning, light on. 3:45, light on. Some nights lit for hours. I assumed insomnia. I assumed a television. I assumed nothing that concerned me. Then one night, coming home late from a work event, I glanced up as I always did at that window. The light was on, and someone was standing at it. I stopped on my path. The figure did not move, standing slightly back from the glass. The shape was unmistakable. A person, facing out, facing my house. I went inside. I told myself it was Mrs. Hargrove. Unable to sleep, looking out at the night. The most ordinary thing in the world. But I thought about the hours. 2 in the morning, 3:45. Hours when I was home. Hours when my own lights were on. I began to think about timing. Over the following 3 weeks I kept a record on my phone. Notes app. Timestamps. Every time I noticed the Hargroves' upstairs window lit. On 16 occasions over 3 weeks. The light came on within 15 minutes of me arriving home. On 9 occasions. It went off within 10 minutes of my own lights going out. I sat with that data for a long time. I am an analyst by profession. I work with data every day. I understand correlation. I understand coincidence. I also understand what a pattern looks like. I called the police non-emergency line. I told them what I had observed. I gave them my notes. They spoke to the Hargroves. They searched the bedroom. On the windowsill, a notebook. On the desk beside the window, high-powered binoculars. In the notebook were observations. Detailed observations. Times. Activities. What I was wearing on specific dates. What I appeared to be doing in my kitchen. My living room, my front garden. 112 entries. Starting from the week I moved in. He had been watching me from the day I arrived. Mrs. Hargrove did not know. She had thought her husband had insomnia. She had slept in the spare room for years. She left him the week after the search. He was charged. He was convicted. I still live in that house. I refuse to let what he did take something else from me. But I closed the curtains on every window that faces the close. Permanently. I have not looked out of those windows since. I do not want to know. If any other windows are lit at hours they should not be. I do not want to check. I am afraid that if I do, I will find something. And I am not ready to do this again. Your street is familiar. The houses you have driven past 1,000 times. The windows you have never thought to look at twice. The thing about surveillance is that it is invisible. Until it is not. Until the sliver of light at the wrong hour. Until the object that should not be in your home. Until a neighbor knocks on your door and says she has been trying to decide whether to tell you. Until you run the numbers and the pattern becomes impossible to unsee. All 3 of the people in tonight's stories looked up one day, looked across, and understood that the ordinary window they had never once questioned had a person behind it, watching, recording, waiting. I am not asking you to be afraid of your neighbors. I am asking you to know them. Know who lives across the street. So that you notice when something changes. Thank you for listening. Comment your story. I read every one. Subscribe for new stories. And tonight, before you sleep, check your curtains. Every window. Every gap.